Hello everyone, it's Kari from sunshineinmypocket.com, and today I have a really fun project for you using this stamp set. This is from the Hedgehog Hollow August kit, and we're going to use the honey pot here and the little, what do you call that you get the honey out of the jar? Last week I used these layering stamps also from the kit, and I'm going to use that bee from that set for today's card. And this is the project we're going to make. It's going to look like honey is actually falling down the front of your card. But the beautiful thing about this is that it's not going to be sticky like real honey. These are the layering stencils that come in the kit, and I wanted to show you how I created this particular background. I used the medium size stencil and I taped off 2 of the rows. I did the light yellow first, outlined it with that Copic multiliner there, and then changed it a little to the right and added the darker yellow. For this one, I taped off one of the sections, just one of the rows, and I first did the purple, then went down to the blue, green, yellow, orange, and red, which is kind of a pinky red for this one. I did clean off the stencil in between each time I moved that. For this one, I used this smaller stencil, and I did one in a light blue, and then I went over it with the medium stencil in a darker blue. And for this crazy green one, I used all of the stencils, I believe. So the small one, the small hexagon, is the darkest one that I did on top. And these stencils are interesting because if you find that they're not lining up like this, then sometimes you just need to flip them around and they will line up completely. So here's the middle one. See that, how it doesn't line up? But if I flip it over, there you go. Now it is lined up, and there's the top one as well. So this is the one I'm going to be making the card with today, and I want to use that little honey jar and the honey dipper. That's what this little tool is called, a honey dipper. I have never used one of those in my entire life, but apparently they pick up the honey and allow you to drizzle it where you want it. Have you used one of those before? I'm going to color the top of this honey jar with the same colors that I colored the bee wings. So these are just some light blues. I'm starting with the B00, and I'll blend that out with the B000, and then I'll go in with the B000. And when I colored this up the first time, I thought that it wasn't quite dark enough, so I did go over it a second time. And this is just such simple, easy Copic coloring, and it still gives you a little bit of a highlight in the center so that it matches the honey below, and it indicates just a little bit of light shining down there. Super easy to do. See how I am just blending out that color there, and that's all there is to it. Now to add this to the card, I'm just going to use some liquid adhesive to adhere it straight to the card, and I'm going to do the same thing with the honey dipper, and then we're going to get into the fun part, and that is adding the realistic honey. I mean, it really does look real. It's kind of a fun little trick that I have learned over the years. I'm going to use this twine. This is just some black twine that I've had in my stash for ages. I'll tie it up in a little tiny bow here, and that's what I'm going to use to make it look like the honey dipper is tied to the honey jar. See that there? I'm just going to trim off those little tails, make it a little bit shorter, and that is going to be our honey jar. So now I am just going to jump right in. I'm going to start with a light color of yellow. This is Y00, I believe. And I'm just going to lightly draw in where I think the honey would be dripping down that card, dripping down the hexagons. And this is just really simple to do. I was going to start off using a pencil, but I decided that that would really show through with the Copic marker. So don't worry about using a pencil, just go right to it. Now I'm going to start out with this, or add some more of this Y32 here, and just go over where I started with the really light color. Just commit. I'm just going to commit. Go right to it. So this is going to be the lightest shade, I believe, for the honey. And as you can see, I have it dripping down a little bit more on the left side than on the right. And I'm just going to go over the honey dipper a little too to show that there's some honey dripping off that. And now I'll go in with my dark color here. This is the Y26, and that is going to add even more depth. So I'll outline just the outline of each of the honey drips here underneath, and I'll outline the outside pieces. Now, just a little reminder, you want to make this darker than you think that it's going to be. These Y colors are the same colors that I used to color the honey jar, the honey that's in the jar there. But I'm going to go in with some even darker colors because when we get to the final step, which I'll get to in just a moment, then it's going to lighten this up dramatically. So I will use a little bit of this Y13 to brighten that up a little, make it look a little more like the honey in the jar. But really we want this darker than you think. So a little more of the shadow here with the darkest color. You can see I'm going a little bit darker than I probably would normally. And after that's done, I'm even going to go in a little bit with some colored pencils to add some more definition and make it a little more dramatic. So as you can see, doesn't it look like honey is dripping right off that hexagon there? It's so fun. I'm going in with a darker and darker shade of colored pencil. These are just Prismacolor pencils, and I just chose a few of my darker yellows here to add some of those shadows. A little bit on the bottom there of the honey dipper as well. And for the final touch, just this last brown, and that's going to go on the darkest sections. So pretty much underneath each of the drips and in the very center there, right underneath the honey dipper, I'm going to outline just a little bit there and underneath each of those ridges there. And that's all. That's our honey, our dripping honey. Isn't it cool? We're not done yet though. Hold on just a minute. I'm going to show you the final touch that really makes this pop. Now this paper also came in the kit and it is shiny. It has kind of a sheen to it, a metallic sheen. And I'm going to use this blue one, but I'm going to show you a trick for not wasting any of that paper. I'm going to use that to make a frame around my card instead of a mat. So I'm going to stamp on the sentiment now before I get any further. And I usually try it out on this acetate sheet here, and I found that it was a little too far down. I wanted to move it up just a little bit. So the trick is it still has ink on that stamp. So be sure you put down some acetate or something in between so that it does not get on your card panel that we work so hard on. And then you can go ahead and stamp that down, make sure it's in the right position. And it looks good to me, so I'm going to go ahead and stamp that. And this is VersaFine Onyx Black, which is my favorite crisp black ink for sentiments. So there it is, and now it's time for the frame. So I just cut this out of a rectangle die, and you can see that I've saved this center part of that paper for another use. And this one I'm going to just adhere down with some liquid adhesive all the way around that frame. And then I'm kind of cheating towards the bottom of the panel here because it was just a touch smaller than my panel, and I'll trim that down with scissors so it all matches up. And now it looks like you have matted this with that turquoise pearl paper, but it's really just a frame. You can save all the rest of that paper for another use. I took some glossy accents and I added it to this bow to keep that bow tied. Just a little dot of glossy accents will do, or you can use multi-matte medium also. And then I'm going to hold that down with my acrylic block while it dries. And now I'm adding glossy accents to our honey. This is going to dry shiny and make it look real, but it won't be sticky. So I'm adding that all over that honey, and then I decided that it really needs to be on the jar too, because that honey in the jar needs to be shiny as well, and especially in that glass. But look at that. Doesn't that look neat? So I'm going to add the glossy accents all around this jar as well. Just like that, we're done. And I'll put that bow back down, and there it goes. Now I let this dry completely. I'm popping the bee up with some 3M foam tape, and once the honey dried all the way, I added a second layer of the glossy accents, which really gives it that 3D look and makes it pop. A little bit of Stickles on that bee to add a little more shine, just a little bit. I hope you can see that in this video here. Sometimes it's hard to see the shine and the shimmer, And there is our card. Isn't that fun? So I challenge you to try this with your supplies that you may have. You can do this technique with any of your supplies, and it turns out so fun and looks like real honey. It'll get a second look for sure. So I want to thank you so much for stopping by today. If you enjoyed this video and this idea, give me a thumbs up. I'd love to see you as a subscriber too, so that you don't miss a thing. I'll be back soon with more inspiration. Thanks for stopping by. Bye-bye.